if you could answer another question, because I'm curious about this. The price of gold today is $1,580. The dollar during these last 3 years was devalued almost 50%. When you wake up in the morning, do you care about the price of gold?
Well, I pay attention to the price of gold, but I think it reflects a lot of things. It reflects global uncertainties. I think the reason people hold gold is as a protection against what we call tail risk, really, really bad outcomes. And to the extent that the last few years have made people more worried about the potential of a major crisis, then they have gold as a protection.
Do you think gold is money?
No.
It's not money. Even if it has been money for 6,000 years, do you think gold is money?
No.
It's not money. Even if it has been money for 6,000 years, somebody reversed that and eliminated that economic law.
Well, it's an asset. I mean, it's the same. Would you say Treasury bills are money? I don't think they're money either, but they're a financial asset.
Why do central banks hold it?
Well, it's a form of reserves.
So why don't they hold diamonds?
Well, it's tradition, long-term tradition.
Some people still think it's money.
What is money, and what is the role of money in the history of human civilization?
Money is a medium of exchange. The thing that defines money is that it is a good that you don't buy for its own sake, because you want to consume it itself, or because you want to employ it in the production of other goods, which is what capital goods are. So we have consumption goods, we have capital goods. Money is distinct from those two because it is a good that is acquired purely to be exchanged later on for other goods. So it's not something that you acquire for its own sake. You acquire it so that you can then later on exchange it, and that's a market good. That's a market good like all other goods. It's you acquire food because you eat it. You acquire a car to move you around. You acquire money so that you can exchange it for other goods. And that's something that many people have a hard time grasping, of the concept of money as a market good. But it is a market good, just like all others. And the importance of it is that it allows us to trade. It allows us to develop the division of labor, which would not be possible at any kind of sophisticated level without money. So if we live in a small society of 10 people, then think about all the things that we can make, all the things that we can produce. If we're only 10 people isolated from the world, there's only very few things that we can make, and therefore we can exchange those things directly with one another. But as if we get in contact with other societies that have more people, then the opportunities for specialization increase. If there's 10 people, the only thing that you can make is the very basics you need for your survival. But if you're part of an economy of 10 million people, there's much more room for specialization. You can make a car, you can make a house that's very sophisticated, and that relies on the division of labor. That relies on you specializing in doing one tiny little thing, which is not what you consume. You trade that thing for all the things that you consume. So as the economy becomes more sophisticated and involves more people, and currently we're all part of an economy of almost 8 billion people, each one of us produces one tiny little thing, and they exchange that thing for all the things that they want. So because we specialize, we become more productive in doing the thing that we're good at. So, there's people out there who are engineers who are designing windshields in cars. It's a very specialized thing. They sell windshield design to Mercedes-Benz, and then from that, that windshield design is added on to millions of cars around the world, and from that they're able to get enough money to meet all of their needs. So the division of labor is enhanced enormously with money, because without money it's very difficult to be able to exchange a large number of goods. It's very difficult to have a sophisticated economy with a large degree of specialization, because it's very difficult to find people who want the thing that you have and have the thing that you want. We call this the coincidence of wants. And that's really the problem that money solves. So you make apples and I make oranges. I'd like to have some of your apples, but you don't want my oranges. We have a problem of coincidence of wants. So what do? You want bananas. I need to find somebody who has bananas, give them my oranges, take their bananas, give you their bananas, and then I take the apples. In that case, bananas are a medium of exchange. So it's natural that a medium of exchange will evolve and will emerge in an economy as an economy becomes more sophisticated. As we move beyond 10 people and 10 goods, it's inevitable that we're going to come to a situation where we have the problem of coincidence of wants. And the way to solve that is to use a medium of exchange. And it can be anything. It can be a banana. It can be food stuff. It can be any kind of good. As long as I acquire the good with the purpose of it passing it on to you, not with the purpose of me consuming it or using it, then that's a medium of exchange. A market is just the name for the naturally emergent phenomena of people voluntarily exchanging things. It's
At any scale.
At any scale, yeah. It could be a market of 2 people on an island on their own. It could be 8 billion people across the planet.
Naturally emerging.
Yes, this is the thing I think that is very hard for many people who don't have a good understanding of economics to grasp, that capitalism and markets are not something that you need a central planner or a government officer to make happen. Capitalism is just what happens when people are left to their own devices. It's just our cognitive capacity allows us to develop tools that we can use for production. And that's what we do. That's what humans have been doing since they started, making spears to hunt. That's the first capital good, probably. So we're constantly accumulating capital. We're constantly trading with one another. We find an opportunity. You've got a lot of oranges. I've got a lot of apples. Then I'll take some of yours, you'll take some of mine, we're both better off. This is just a naturally emergent thing, and money is what makes it enormously powerful. Money is what allows it to scale, really. Money is what allows it to go beyond small societies into just something that is global. Because with money, again, as I was saying earlier, all you need to do is specialize in doing one thing, the thing that you do best, and then you exchange that for money, and you don't have to worry about whether the other people involved in this want what you have and have what you want. You just sell it for money to whoever wants it, and you buy whatever you want from whoever has it. And that's an enormous reduction in the mental burden of how a market economy functions. So the first thing that I would say about money is that it allows for the division of labor, and it allows for the market system to grow. And the second thing is that money is a mechanism for storing value into the future. So again, as humans, we develop the capacity to think for the future. We make a spear so that we can hunt, and then we see that it works, and then we take it out of the animal that we hunted it with, and we keep it for the next day's hunt. And then we start making a better spear. We make a better fishing rod, and then we make a fishing net, and then we make a fishing boat. And that's our ability to think of the future. And as we start building durable goods, we start thinking more and more of the future. We start becoming more and more future oriented. And that's really the process of civilization, the process of denying our needs now in order to think for the future. So instead of spending all of our day on the beach enjoying ourselves, we take time off from leisure on the beach and spend some time making a spear or making a fishing rod, so that our productivity in hunting or fishing tomorrow is going to be higher. And so that ability to think for the future is enhanced by our ability to provide for the future, and we do that with durable goods. But then money ends up being the best mechanism for providing for the future, because the future is uncertain. So you can save your apples and oranges, you can save the spears, you can save the animal that you hunted, but these things first they rot. They're not very good at holding on to their value over time. But even if they were, even if have objects that are durable, the problem with them is that you don't know if you need them tomorrow or next month or next year. You're not sure if you're going to be needing them, and you might end up not needing them, and you might end up not finding anybody who needs them, or finding somebody who needs them but doesn't value them much and won't give you much in exchange. Money allows you the optionality of saving the most liquid good, the most saleable good. So it's something that you can sell tomorrow with the least uncertainty. It has the most liquidity, the most ability to be sold without a loss in its value. So money is our most advanced technology and our best technology for moving value into the future. And so I think history really, I argue this in all my books, is that really history we see, we can think of it as a process of our money gets harder, and so our money gets better at holding on to its value for the future. And by harder, I mean harder to produce. We find things that are hard to produce that are better at holding on to their value, so they hold on to their value better for the future. And that allows us to plot and plan for the future. That makes the future less uncertain, and that makes us more future-oriented. In other words, it lowers our time preference.
When you say standard, what does it mean? When you say silver standard, gold standard, again, with the basic question.
The term really, I think, was based out of gold. The first time this came out was the gold standard, because so I said gold was money at the end of the 19th century, but it wasn't just that everybody was using gold coins and trading with gold coins, because that's got a problem of divisibility. So a lot of things are worth less than one gold coin. So how do you buy that thing? And the answer was that you created monetary instruments that were backed by gold. And so currencies, national currencies under the gold standard, were specific units of gold. And that's how a gold standard functioned. Money was gold, but you had pieces of paper that were redeemable in gold. So you could go to the central bank, you could give them the piece of paper, the $100 bill or the $10 bill, and they'll give you gold in exchange. They give you a specific quantity of gold in exchange. Effectively, the paper was just a receipt for gold.
So the paper exactly represented the amount of gold.
Exactly. That was the plan. Or that was what it's supposed to do, but arguably we never had a pure gold standard, because the nature of gold means that the people who are in charge of the gold, they have an enormous amount of power because the gold is concentrated with them. And as long as not everybody shows up at the same time asking for their gold, then you can make more receipts than you have gold. And
sure.
So
there's always shady stuff going on, but at least that's the stated goal, is the receipt should exactly represent the amount of gold there. And also when you say standard, it means that governments sort of publicly stated that this is the main way of making transactions that are monetary. So this is the money. This is the official money that you should be using if you live in this country.
Yes, although I would say it's more like the other way around. It's not that the governments established gold as money. It's more like gold gave the governments the credibility for their currencies. So governments were not the ones that made gold money. Gold has been money before the states were invented. States, if you have a government and you'd like to have some legitimacy and you'd like to be able to deal with other governments on an equal footing, you had to go by the gold standard. You had to have a currency that was redeemable in gold so that you could trade with the rest of the world, so that people could, in your country, use that currency. So it's not that governments were choosing gold. It's more like they were having to adapt their own currencies to gold in order to give their currencies credibility.
So there's a dance there, though, because if they had to, then why did they switch away from it after? So there is a dance where the governments, the people pressure. So first of all, the basic characteristics of the hard money pressures the governments and the people in terms of what should be used. Then the people, based on their community, the network effects, the way the narratives they tell each other, all that kind of stuff, they pressure the governments to take on a particular money. Then the governments, they like power, they like control, all those kinds of things. They pressure the people and tell different kinds of narratives. So there's a dance going on in this evolution of what technology to use for a monetary system. So the reason I don't know if governments had to, because they clearly didn't have to, because they eventually moved away from it. But there was pressure probably.
Yeah, but I mean, even after they moved away from it, central banks until today, they still hold a lot of gold reserves. In fact, if you look at 1914, when the world really went off the gold standard, the amount of gold reserves held by central banks was a tiny fraction of what it was. As time went on, central banks accumulated more and more gold. What ended up happening is they prevented their citizens from using the gold, but they continued to use it. So gold continued to be money up until 1971, because effectively the world was on a dollar standard and the dollars were backed by gold. But then after 1971, even then, central banks continued to accumulate gold, because why would you as a central bank want to accumulate pieces of paper effectively, or credit liabilities of another central bank that can produce them infinitely? And it's a lesson that's becoming more and more obvious to governments today. As we see U.S. sanctions taking, say, Russian reserves or Afghanistani reserves. And this is why, we see China and Russia have accumulated a lot of gold over the last 10, 20 years.
So just to return to the question of definitions, so what is hard money versus soft money?
Yes, so hard, it's a relative thing, but the hardness refers to the difficulty of producing more units of the money supply. So an easy money would be a money that is relatively easy to make. So you can increase the supply by 10, 20, 30, 40, 50% or something like that. So pretty much all commodities, all market commodities other than gold and silver, they're easy money and they're not suitable as a monetary medium because they're being consumed. So if you look at, in the Bitcoin standard, I mentioned this metric called the stock to flow ratio, which is the ratio of the annual production, the flow, to the stockpile, the existing stockpile. If you look at all the other metals, they're easy money because they're being consumed. So think about how much stockpiles of copper there are in the world today. So copper companies obviously have some stockpiles of copper. Major copper consumers will have stockpiles of copper, but the vast majority of copper is essentially on a conveyor belt of production from the mine straight to the consumer good that it's being used for. So the existing stockpiles are roughly in the range of 1 year's production. If you take all of the companies, I don't have exact statistics. It's very difficult to get these, but it's roughly in the same range. Like if copper production were to stop completely today, we'll have about a year's production stored in various places. So that makes copper terrible money, because if you started using copper as money, and this is why, a lot of people say, well, money is a collective illusion. Money is a social construct. If we all agree that something is money, then something is money. I think this is completely clueless. And it's usually Marxists who believe this, so obviously no understanding of economics. It's completely clueless, because even if everybody in society decided we wanted to make copper as money, even if we all decided to collectively take part in this hallucination or illusion, it would not make copper money. It would just make everybody who decides to take part in this hallucination poor. That's it. It would make copper miners rich. It would make all of the people who chose copper as money poor, and copper would not be money. It can't work, because what happens is, because of the fact that the stockpiles are so small, if you buy, even if you get the 1,000 richest people in the world, all of the world's billionaires, they get together, they all dump all of the money that they have, all the stocks, all the bonds, all the gold, all of the Bitcoin, everything that they own, they dump it and they buy copper with it. What's going to happen? Price of copper is going to go up a lot. But what's going to stop copper miners from flooding the market with even more copper than what the billionaires bought? Nothing. They're going to dump all of that extra copper production. If the price of copper is going to go up, so there will be a lot more copper mining than all the other metals. A lot of nickel companies and gold miners are going to switch to focusing on copper, and then we're going to dump an enormous amount of copper on the market. The value of copper is going to crash, and the people who chose copper as money are just going to end up with large warehouses of very cheap rusting metal.